Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome, everybody. I always feel like a little bit of a naughty girl when I come in so late at night, but it is in that absorption, you know, not just for Cindy, just to be able to not be stressed out, not to have to deal with stuff. Maybe it is a little bit in that. But I'm trying to take in and understand the difference between procrastination and distraction. Because for me, it always seems like I'm jumping up and I'm doing something, I'm doing something else. But isn't that distraction? Or is that procrastination in whatever I'm doing? I wonder if it's a little bit, I wonder if it's a little bit of both. I was enjoying my day. I was. And at the same time, I was being distracted by the nothing, right? A lot of the lessons coming across my path, it just kind of like stuff that has come across my path and I've absorbed it already. I just don't want to get into it again. Or is it in that heaviness that we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again, that after a while we build up that little bit of disinterest in it. I'm thinking in this moment of, some content creators, some people that I really admire, some people that I appreciate in their fields, especially in the fields of narcissism, because narcissism was what really got me to take a look at the people in my life, even people I don't know, just in those small interactions with each other, to recognize what I never recognized. It's funny when I say it that way, but it is the truth. I have no idea how I bumbled my way along and I eventually got to where I am because, I have to say, maybe it is in that procrastination, in that distraction, because, right, we're not sitting in one place for any length of time to grow roots, to allow to make connections and be influenced by our surroundings or those people in our surroundings. And it's been that way for the most part of my life. And, I could cry the blues and that, but I look at all the opportunities to create differently in my life. And may seem like I'm just all over the place, but just give me a minute. I'm sure it's going to just all come right back into the one message of being distracted and in that procrastination and in those things that we do in our procrastination. But change has been in my life, my entire life, constantly. My dad was a nomad, and being a nomad, it dictates for change because you're in a different landscape constantly. And, he, because he brought his family around along for that ride, and being the spectator that I was, not necessarily a willing participant, but being dragged along in it nonetheless, and trying to make the best of it. And like I said, in those things that I found to be so difficult, there were gifts in that, because I got used to being uprooted on the constant. I got used to being new surroundings I didn't understand, people I didn't understand, because not only would I be put into a setting with different people, but sometimes those settings would be in different communities, and communities not just in different countries and different cities do they have traditions, but communities do, moving as a city girl, right, and moving to the country, and have the kids there who always dreamed of living in the big city, and here, right, my dad brought us to the country, and these are changes, like these are totally different from what anybody would normally expect, right, because I was going from one landscape to another. But like I said, they offered up gifts because it was an opportunity each time to reinvent myself, to take a look at myself in the life that I had in the past, which would have been, right, the last school, the last house we lived, the last neighborhood we lived in, right? And I would maybe chameleon a little bit to my surroundings a little bit easier each time, quicker, even be able to do it quicker, so it just seemed natural that was my persona, when in fact I was just kind of taking a quick look around and seeing what the people were like, and then just trying to, right, dress myself in my personality, or even in my clothes, in my ideas, and in my beliefs. I would just make them the same, right? And then I would go home and try to fall back into that person that I really was. And I did that my entire life, not just in schools, but most definitely in the jobs that I brought on, right? Jobs that I maybe should never have been in, a lot of them, while even though I shouldn't have been in them, again, they offered up gifts in those experiences. Like when I was working in the bars and the nightclubs, being that, right, that shy, introverted person I was, right? I was clubbing, but I was only clubbing because I was chameleoning. Is that I was, right? I was molding myself into the people that I was surrounding myself with. And they were party revelers and drinkers and carefree bums, beautiful bums. I don't mean to say it like that, but kind, kind, loving, fun. But they didn't make, my friend Brian would say, working for the man. It wasn't it wasn't that kind of crew. We just loved the carefree, right? No strings attached, no responsibilities, right? This is the person that I was at one time, right? I didn't learn a lot of these lessons until well into my 50s, right? I was well into my 50s before I woke up to some of these ideas. And then to try to do better by myself by that. But I didn't want to do better by myself by chameleon. I really wanted to be myself. I had growing up a little bit in those experiences that I had, in those friendships that I was able to feel comfortable and safe in and have fun in, even if they weren't responsible, right? Friends that held me account. I was just about to say that, but that can't be wholly true. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now because my friends did love me in a way where they did hold me up. They did support me in my choices and in my decisions, and that is definitely right support in that. That is holding me accountable, right? But then again, that people pleasing and not wanting to let people down. Well into my 50s, you guys, before I started appreciating, you know, who I was, what made me happy, and not giving up those joys and those loves and even those goals and dreams, even though I was well into my 50s, right? Hello, Melvin. Two older folks at night, one yakking and one listening. Hello, Cindy. Hello, Melvin. And that's true. And that's true too. I have been with myself all day long. It was time to get a little bit vocal before I called it a night. And in coming in and sharing some of these reflections, sometimes it is in that anticipation, if not in the moment, somewheres down the road, right? Somebody might happen across it. It might serve them in a way, right? Even if it didn't serve me, maybe it was a failure. We learn lots from experiencing and being the spectator in somebody else's failure. And it's not like reveling in somebody else's failure, but if somebody fails, they could be the lesson for us that we don't have to have that lesson for ourselves. I learned that very early, and it has served me well in being able to stay one or two steps ahead of the game quite often, right? And if not one or two steps ahead of the game, at least be able to make things comfortable while things are kind of bumping along, right? Right? Yeah, just be like a good pair of shocks for a vehicle that we can get out there into the mountains and really do some ripping of the the cliffs and the the bush, right? And these are dreams, these are goals. And you know what? I might not ever achieve any of them, right? I suspect quite a few of them I won't. And that's okay because it is in the pursuit of them. And it is true that, uh, that lots of times that we don't accomplish in life what we want, but what are you going to do? Except that you're not going to get what you want, and then you don't even try, and then you don't get to have these experiences that do help you out. Like when I got that job working in bars and nightclubs, it made it easy for me, or easier for me, to socialize and to make friends and connect with people, right? It's not my thing, right? I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the skyscrape of the buildings and skyscrapers in front of me that are usually full of lights, and I can see the lights are all off now, right? People are going to bed. See, we each have to make our own choices for ourselves 100%. And you know what? I am yakking in that. I really am yakking on it in that because it is in the conversations that we have that maybe I have an insight or a wrong perspective even, right? Because in my mind, I have these ideas, these thoughts, these ways that I'm moving in. But am I going to be right in all of them? No, I picked a direction and I've moved in it and I'm just feeling my way along. And it's going to be the ouchies, right? That are going to let me know that I'm going in the wrong direction. I'm going in the right direction. It's just going to feel like work. That's all, right? It won't be uncomfortable. It'll just be feel like work. It'll be those things that I'm procrastinating in or being distracted, right? And for me, that is the truth. I tried to stay on top of it. You get a few things, right? But who's to say where you are in the bigger scheme of things, if you're further ahead of the game or if you're just falling behind and trailing behind everybody else, right? There is no measure in that for me. So I just, right, bumble along the best that I can. You guys, let's just grab a card here. Please, not a card like we had yesterday. You know, it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's curious because I know that it's bang on, and yet I can't get it. I don't understand it. So please, let's not pick one of those cards today where I just can't even get my own message in the moment. Just because I don't get it this moment doesn't mean that when I shut down for the night that I go, oh, that's what it meant. Right? But I didn't do that last night. That word uh, the word didn't stump me, but what I had written had stumped me because I know it's it's a phrase or a quote or an understanding for another moment, a moment I haven't experienced yet. So if we can just go into something that I have a little bit more experience in or a little bit more insight to share before I shut her down for the night, just like everybody else. Oh yeah, everybody's going to bed now. All the lights are going off. Yeah. Okay, you guys, let's pull a card here. First perspective, just a couple of minutes before we call it a night, and it's going to be this card right here. Wonder. We got the word wonder. Not I wonder, right? I wonder when this is going to happen. I wonder why that happened. I wonder why she said this, right? I wonder why always me. Like, not wonder like that, but wonder. Like, wow, wonder. Like when I go on my trips in September and I'm driving and I'm just looking at the beautiful landscapes and the housing and the trees and everything. And we talk about distraction, right? When I'm on the road, I am distracted by everything because I'm absorbing everything because that's a moment that I'll never experience again in that connection with Mother Nature, right? I wish I could be out on the road more often. I wish I could get out there, right? A couple of days a week. That would be absolutely amazing. And in those possibilities and in those movements that I make and those dreams and those goals, right? That maybe somewheres down the road, there's a possibility for that. But maybe not. Maybe I came in too late to the party. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to follow my own lessons and make the best of it and have fun by it. What else am I going to do? Beat myself up? Take a look at my life and what I don't have? When I can take a look at a life that I possibly could have, right? Colonel Sanders didn't start Kentucky Fried Chicken until he was well into his 70s. And that's a truth. And look how huge he got. And he was around for that too, because I remember Colonel Sanders doing his own commercials, right? So there is time. It is never too late. A lot of these lessons that I got, man, they truly impact. And yes, I cling on to these ones in my beliefs because I wish it to be true, right? I dream for it. They're in my goal setting, right? And they are condensed and solid and rooted and grounded and a part of me. And that is the belief when you're able to absorb things that way, right? Let me have a sip of my coffee. Ah, very nice. Past few coffees, I get sidetracked again. I'm doing things, and the next thing I know, goes I make that cup of coffee, and oh my goodness, it's just lukewarm, and I hate to waste. So I try to get some of it into me, but a cup of coffee should be nice and hot and steaming. Okay, what did I write here with wonder? Wonder is the majesty of what's being presented. The wow. Wow. And it's not just like a physical landscape, it could be an insight, it could be a movie, a conversation, it could be somebody who's overextending in their thought capabilities that you look at them and go, where did where did that come from? Right? And it is that wonder. Wonder is the majesty of what's being presented because it is fantastical, right? And that's the wonder of it. That's right. That's bringing out the eyes and the mouth and the shock and the can't use the word wonder when you're trying to explain the word wonder. But the I can use the majesty of it all, right? I really like this word wonder because it's something that I revel in. I absolutely love it. It comes easy for me. I don't know why it comes so easy for me, that why I'm so curious and fascinated by everything. By everything. I am fascinated. If I don't know anything about it, I'm fascinated. I want to know something about it. And you know what? I'll never be an expert in that. But maybe I might be able to learn a little bit. Maybe I might be able to learn enough to get myself into a conversation where I can actually be able to find possibly another commonality because we are actually now having a conversation. Wonder. Well, I said it's not that I wonder kind of situation, but because that is in what I'm doing, right? Because it is very curious. There isn't a lot of tangible, physical, right? The realistic presentation is there, the understanding is there. But for me, the evidence is so important. And yes, in my experience, I can experience the evidence, but that evidence being witnessed by somebody else is going to look totally, totally different just from the different perspectives that something is being looked and understood as. So the wonder, is there. I wonder, right? Because I wonder why me? Why now? Why not so and so? And why so and so? Right? Right? Because you can look at it that way too, because we feel bad because that's a reflection on us. And it just says, oh, they're going to just let anybody into the party, right? And then we get a little bit judgmental in that. Everybody should have the opportunity and the right to live out a life and make their own choices, because that's what we're expected to do, is to make some choices, to step outside of ourselves, set those goals, move towards our dreams, be willing to be a part of the party, be happy to be here, right? I said that I was going to bring it right back, but we pulled the word wonder, and I got lost in that. That's a great word, because it does impact my life in a lot of ways. That wonder, that curiosity is what something, it's not just ADHD, right? It's, or ADD. It that draws my attention away from what I am doing. That is actually pulling me away for a moment to take a breather, to come to the surface, because I'm enjoying what I'm doing too much. And when you enjoy what you're doing, you can go into it and not take those breathers and those time outs. And then if we don't do that, then we end up, right, not feeling well physically, mentally, emotionally, right? The relationships are strained in that. And we end up not being able to connect with anything except for ourselves and what we're doing. Now I got a little bit off all over the place there tonight, but that's what happens, right? That you just get so completed. That's what it is. It's just completed in the day. And in that commitment and that accountability to myself in showing up, right? It's not necessarily the best of me showing up. And I recognize that too. But I am proud of the effort, and I'm going to leave it at that. Melvin, thank you so much for popping into my live. I'm getting a few things done. I got my resume. I just got to do a letter of introduction, and I'll work on that tomorrow, and a couple of listings, and make a list of questions uh, in maybe possibly opening up a booth and actually stepping into that entrepreneurship that I'm always yapping about, as Malcolm would call it, yakking about, not yapping about, yakking about. Okay, you guys, have a great night. Have a great day. If you're just starting your day, I'll be back later on. And if you want to pop in, say hi. I always leave these commentaries in there. I'm always happy to see who's coming in. And I appreciate you came in and kept me company tonight. Okay, you guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.